Hello everybody, class is in session, and that can only mean one thing. That means it's time for Graded, where we take a look at last night's Monday Night Raw and grade each segment from F to A+. Last night's Raw was from Boston, Massachusetts. That's not a Bostonian accent. That's not a New England accent by any stretch of the imagination. I've done myself a disservice, but never mind. Let's hope that I can get back on your good side by putting some accurate grades out there for all the different parts of Monday Night Raw. Let's get into it. Let's go. Get excited right now. You at the back. Get excited now. So, we had our opening segment, and as every week I mention, the traditional opening segment never starts with a wrestling match, but this time it didn't even start in the ring. The opening segment, the show opened with Roman Reigns walking down a corridor backstage. Vince McMahon's fantasy world has finally manifested itself in reality. Reigns was on his way to the ring and was stopped by Bobbington Lashley, who looked at him and went, "I hope you're going there to call me out, because if you do, we're going to have a fight." And Roman went, "Well, we'll see about that. Get out of my way." And then Roman went to the ring and then went, "Bobby Lashley, I'm calling you out." What? So despite just seeing each other backstage, Roman and Lashley stood in the ring and looked at each other for a bit, and then Lashley went, took off his hat really fast, and then Roman and him ran at each other and threw a few right hands, and then Kurt Angle ran out onto the ramp, and I got some alarm bells. I was like, oh no, this better not be what I think it is. But it certainly was. Angle went, "You two better stop right now." And they didn't stop. So Angle went, "Everyone in the back, get out here now. I don't care about your individual storylines. I don't care about your motivations. I don't care about face-heel dynamics. I don't care if you're feuding with someone else in this segment at the same time as you. Get out here right now. I don't care if you're the authors of pain, two amoral colossuses on the roster who aren't really concerned about breaking up the feuds of anyone else. They just want to smash other tag teams and potentially at some point win the tag team titles. I don't care about any of that. Everyone get out here and break up Roman Reigns and his opponent, the two most important men in WWE." He didn't say it in those words exactly, but that's what he meant. This segment gets a D+. I really wasn't too impressed here because I think there's been far too many top-level Monday Night Raw feuds over the past few years that have resorted to getting the rest of the locker room out there to act as pawns, to stand in their way and just pull them back and look like utter extras, I guess. Extras in the Roman Reigns show, essentially. Off the top of my head, I think we had them in Goldberg versus Lesnar. We had superstars pulling them apart. We had it in Reigns versus Lesnar. We may have had it in Reigns versus Triple H. We've probably seen it with various other Lesnar feuds, to be honest, all about Lesnar. But maybe Lesnar Joe as well. Yeah, I think Lesnar Joe, it happened then as well. And there's just been too many top-level Raw feuds recently that have fallen back on this lazy plot device. I was going to give it just a straight D, but I've given it a D+ instead because Finn Bálor did a good thing. He was out there and actually paid attention to his own storyline because he saw Constable Corbin and just hit him in the face. And I thought, yes, Finn, you've remembered that you're your own person with hopes and dreams, not like these other mindless drones around you. Next up, the first match of the evening, Alexa Bliss and Mickie James versus Natalya and Nia Jax, who are still friends for some reason. Ronda Rousey is sort of their pal. I don't know. This was a fairly straightforward tag match. It was pretty standard, sort of Raw, early in the show, tag affair, kind of a thing sort of going on. But it was interrupted by a dirty big commercial break as well, which kind of ruined the flow for me. But then, to be fair, towards the end, Natalya gave Nia Jax a big old hot tag. Nia came in and just steamrolled everyone en route to victory, and it was pretty good. It was a good hot tag from Nia. So yeah, it ended on a high. So yeah, it wasn't the best match. It was probably about a C or something, but I'm actually going to bump this up to a B- because I didn't just enjoy Nia's hot tag till the end. I also enjoyed the post-match shenaniganry where Alexa Bliss took a kendo stick, brought it into the ring, and smacked Nia Jax over the back as she was celebrating her victory. And then Nia, because she's, solid and just a generally monstrous, I'm going to destroy you kind of babyface, took the kendo stick from Alexa Bliss, broke it over her knee, and Alexa Bliss looked appropriately terrified. Again, I give it a B-. Not going to give it anything higher though, because I still don't understand what Natalya and Nia Jax are doing. I don't understand why they're friends. It's never really been explained. However, if I'm proven wrong, and if at Extreme Rules Natalya actually turns heel on Nia Jax, then, you know what, I'll apologise, I'll hold my hand. I will officially change this grade from a B- to a B. I'll officially do that for you. Just remind me if it happens, but for now, yeah, B-. Next up, No Way Jose versus Mojo Rawley. The past 2 weeks, Mojo has refused to face No Way Jose. Maybe the past 3 weeks, actually. But this time, for unknown reasons, he actually did wrestle No Way Jose. It was a typical kind of, this guy's making a statement sort of match. Mojo hit like a big pounce. He was hitting various... They did a couple of the similar spots, the nice little rolls out of the corner and stuff. But generally, it was just a straightforward Mojo Rawley victory. I'm going to give it a C-. Looking at it objectively, or as objectively as you can look at wrestling, it was probably a C, but I'm giving it a minus because the crowd reaction was bloody zero, zilch. It was quiet in there, quiet. Next up, these were scattered throughout the show, but I'm just going to talk about them once again as a whole collective. It's the counselling sessions between Sasha Banks and Bayley. Hooray! There's not really much to report here. The pair just sort of sat in a room with the counsellor and just, you know, threw shade at each other. And then the takeaway was the next week they have to report back to Kurt Angle. Get a D- because I really wasn't impressed with this very much at all. And I'll explain why. I have a theory, right? I think that WWE heard the criticism last week about the counselling segments, and they heard people going, oh, Dr. Shelby would have been funny if he was with Daniel Bryan or Kane, but this whole counselling situation really takes the heat out of a legitimately intense Sasha Banks and Bayley rivalry. We don't like that. So WWE have gone, we've seen the problem here. We know what to do. The problem here is Dr. Shelby. Let's get him out. Let's put in that serious woman instead. No! The issue that everyone had was the fact that Sasha and Bayley weren't settling their differences physically, like every single wrestler does. They were being sent to counselling because Kurt Angle treats Bayley like a child, essentially. So what they've done is they've taken out Dr. Shelby, who arguably was the only popular bit of the segment, and replaced him with just a standard non-comedic sort of character. I'm getting so annoyed, guys. I'm getting so annoyed. I need to go counselling right now. Is Dr. Shelby on the phone? Because I could use him. Next up, this Seth Rollins promo, which I suspect will have... I reckon Ross is going to talk about this in some detail later on today in WTF Moments. Because, right, this segment was totally fine. This Rollins promo was totally fine up until a certain point. Basically, I'll walk you through it. Rollins came out to the ring. He said, you know what, I really hate that I lost the Intercontinental Championship. I cannot wait to win it back from Dolph Ziggler at Extreme Rules. Fair enough. Totally makes sense. Ziggler came out like a good heel with his heavy Drew McIntyre and said, you can never beat me. I'm Dolph Ziggler. He called him kid. He was his annoying self. He was Dolph Ziggler back to somewhere near his heelish best. It was great to see. And then Rollins tried to sort of sow the seeds of dissension between Drew and Dolph. And I get that as well. That made sense too. I was loving this segment. And then Rollins went, Drew, why are you taking orders from Dolph? He must know your secrets. You went to Cranbrook. That's a private school. No, he didn't do that. He said, he must know your secrets. It must get lonely up in Scotland. There's not enough sheep to go around. He implied that Drew McIntyre... Right, let's break down what's wrong with this. Let's break it down. I've made a few notes. Problem the first. Lonely up in Scotland, that's not really true. Drew is from actually Ayr, Scotland, which is a legitimate modern town, and it holds, I think, about 50,000 people. So it's not like all of Scotland is sort of a desolate, rainy kind of wasteland. The people up there just act like it is. Secondly, and perhaps most importantly... Seth Rollins implied that Drew McIntyre has sexual intercourse with sheep on WWE PG programming. He implied that Drew McIntyre achieves an erection when he sees a sheep and pops his penis on WWE TV in front of the child-heavy WWE universe. Thirdly, Drew got annoyed. So does he actually do it? I'm going to just move on to the final point. Fourth and final problem. If Seth had done his research on lazy, cruel British stereotypes, we don't actually say that the Scots have intercourse with sheep. We save that for the Welsh. But I can forgive him that because he's from Iowa. It's quite far away. He probably doesn't know the ins and outs. I don't know the ins and outs of Midwest banter. So, Seth, you know what? Fair play to you. This segment gets a C in all seriousness because I was loving it. Everything made sense up until the sheep joke. And then it was sort of turning him into John Cena again. The rude, wacky babyface who makes silly jokes. Like when he called Jericho Sparkle Crotch, for example. So it only gets a C. And it should have been higher, this segment. It really should. Next up, Bo Dallas versus Matt Hardy. And to be honest, right, this match was actually better than I thought it was going to be. Bo Dallas was bumping like a legend, mate, to make Matt Hardy look like a beast incarnate. No. So yeah, the match took me by surprise. It was pretty decent. Bo Dallas picked up the victory after Matt Hardy got distracted by Curtis Axel and Bray Wyatt fighting on the outside. Bo Dallas took advantage, popped him off the top rope, 1, 2, 3, and the underdog gets the victory. But it only gets a C. and I'll explain why right now. First of all, this was a fairly short match, and it's kind of hard to give short matches particularly high grades, but fair enough. We've seen shorter matches achieve higher than a C though. This was mainly a C because it's another example, as I explained the other week with that lovely Legend of Zelda analogy I used. This is another example of Raw's non-linear storytelling, and in the medium of professional wrestling, I love some novels that are out of order. I love some TV series and movies that are shot non-chronologically. But in wrestling, that doesn't quite work now, does it? It's a weekly episodic thing and it's live. You can't really. So instead of the story going from A to B to C to D, this storyline, A, B, C, and D are all sort of floating around in the ether. You can pick whichever one you like, have a little read of it, throw it back there, pick another. Nothing follows on. My example for this segment is that basically, Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt last week applauded the B team. They said, you know what, fair play, and that gave them sort of the mind game edge going into the match at Extreme Rules. But this week, they decided they're sick of that, and they came out all annoyed at them and fired up. That doesn't make sense, it's out of order. The voice went so stupid there, but it is. It's totally... It's chopped up. The fourth match of the show, Ember Moon versus Liv Morgan. I'll just go straight to the grade. This was a B, and I was surprised. To be honest, I spent last week patronising Liv Morgan and saying, well done, good effort, you know, maybe next time you'll have a great match. She did, she had a really enjoyable match with Ember Moon. Fair play Liv, fair play Ember, gets a B. Ember Moon won with sort of a bridging roll-up thing. Lovely stuff. The best match on the show so far features Liv Morgan. Rock and roll. Next up, a face and face versus heel and heel tag match, you know, when they sort of stick two feuds together. So we had Bobby Roode and Finn Bálor on the face side against Elias and Baron Corbin, Constable Corbin, on the other side. And to be honest, this was sort of standard Raw tag team fare. The match was perfectly reasonable, it was perfectly fine. I was going to give it a B, but instead I'm giving it a B-, and that's because the pre-match stuff I really didn't enjoy. Like, Elias and Corbin sang a song together and it was deliberately bad. And, you know, sometimes that works, but for me, this was just cringy bad rather than, like, good heat bad, if that makes sense. Also, backstage, oh man, I've just remembered this. Bálor and Roode cut a little promo and just came across as totally unlikable dickheads. They were like, we're really good looking, we're really handsome men, and they are, to be fair, but they were like, we're really handsome men. And also, I'm glorious. And that was it. That was basically, and Bálor was like, and I'm going to beat Corbin at Extreme Rules. That was it. Can't cheer for them. They just said they're really handsome. And I know they are, but don't rub it in. I should mention before we talk about the main event as well that throughout the night, Kevin Owens just sat next to Kurt Angle because that's the only place that he's safe from Braun Strowman, which is great. Great Kevin Owens stuff. Kevin Owens is like Deadpool. He understands the rules of the show. He knows the meta lingo going on. He knows what to do. But it didn't work because Kurt Angle booked him in a cage match against Strowman at Extreme Rules, which is fine. I was totally fine with this sort of overarching storyline throughout Raw because it made sense to build to the cage match because Owens, you know, is trying to constantly escape Strowman. My only issue is that we still don't know why Strowman's being a dickhead, a dick, to poor Kevin Owens. But I didn't really grade it because it was just part of the minutiae of Raw, wasn't it? Not really the meat and potatoes. The meat and potatoes. And finally, the main event. Wow, this was sick. Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins saved the show. Transformed it from a poor one into like maybe an average one on balance, which, I mean, this was a great main event. It's great to see Drew McIntyre back in a main event, and boy did he deliver. And of course he was going to against Seth Rollins, but Drew didn't just, you know, get carried through this match by Seth. Drew is also a fantastic worker, and it really showed. He was hitting some moves that we rarely see on the main roster. I'm talking about the one where Rollins was on the top rope, Drew was like below him in the Tree of Woe, and then went surprise, then popped up and then grabbed him and just slung him over his head while his legs were like through the turnbuckle. Really cool stuff. The ending came due to a distraction by Ziggler, which I didn't actually mind too much because Drew and Dolph are heels. It made sense. And Rollins curb stomped Ziggler as he tried to enter the ring through the ropes, and then he turned around straight into the Claymore kick, and Drew picked up the victory. And yeah, in terms of how I'd rate this match in a vacuum, I'd probably give it an A-, but instead I'm going to give it an A because I was just so buzzing to see Drew McIntyre. Big old Drew. I've met him. He used my laptop once to get on his Twitter. He didn't leave his password. I couldn't like scope out, you know, his DMs for booking plans or anything. Not that I would have done. Not that I would have done. He's a terrifying man. Not that I would have done ever. Not that I would have done that to anyone, but especially not if you're like 7 foot tall. So overall, Raw from Boston, I'm gonna give it a C+. Yes, as I mentioned, that main event really did do a lot to save the show, and I do place a little bit more bearing on main events. However, just because this show was better than last week's, don't let that fool you into thinking that this was a particularly strong Raw. It wasn't. It had a strong main event, definitely, but there was still a lot wrong with it. I'm talking obviously mainly about two things, the Reigns and Lashley thing and the Sasha and Bayley thing, which is becoming just so disappointing. But yeah, the other stuff on the show is kind of filler, kind of alright. To be honest, one of the strongest parts of Raw right now is its women's division. Liv Morgan's really stepping up, Ember Moon's putting in really good performances, and as messy as the storyline is, Nia really impressed me tonight as well, or last night. So, C+ I think's fair. It wasn't by any stretch of the imagination a great Raw, but check out the main event. Do that. So that's all for this week on Raw Graded. Thank you very much for watching. I am Jack from Cultaholic.com. You can follow me on Twitter at JackTheJobber. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic. And if you want to as well, you can follow us at Patreon. Patreon.com/Cultaholic. And never forget, of course, to hit that subscribe button and to join us.